Here's everything you need. Heat gun. Squeegee. Your frame, the press, spatula, ink, and your cardboard. So you're going to have to set it up. You have to do this before every time you print. Take your two little blocks and set them up there in the hinges. And then grab this piece of cardboard that I have the lines drawn on and set it in the press. Now the 9x9x9, that fits in this corner here against your two bumpers. And you just nicely slide it up into that corner so it fits. And then take your frame and set this guy down and make sure the internet address here is going to line up against the black square there. So I drew the black squares as, you know, the whole image should fit inside it. But what I really look at while checking this is that the entire bottom side of the internet address lines up just on top of that line. You're going to take this and you lift it up a little bit just so you don't start sliding your blocks off whenever you move it. Lift it up a little bit and move it around. You should be able to see through the mesh and onto the line. Then when you want to check it, take your fingers and push them down and it'll become a lot more clear. What this block back here does and those two little blocks do is they put a gap in between the screen and the cardboard so that when you squeegee over it, the screen pops back up and releases the ink, and then it doesn't smear it or anything. So check that in all spots. If it's off, just move it a little bit over. It's not hugely important, but it will ensure that, you know, everything's nice and square in center. And then their little heads should just be touching the line or just under the line, you know, anywhere around there. Once you're done with that, go ahead and assemble the clamps. Just nice and lightly tighten them down. And then go back and snug them up so you don't want to move it around or anything while you're tightening these down. And they just need to be tight enough to hold it really, not too heavily tight. It shouldn't start marring the wood or putting marks on it. And then you're ready to ink it. Go ahead, take this out, save this piece of cardboard. You got to use it every time to set it up. And then grab your next piece. So it should just slide in, nice and easy. It'll sit right up against both bumpers. And pull the screen down. And make sure it's got that that little snap to it. It's actually called snap, and it's because the screen pops back up off the printing substrate after you're done. Alright, here I have, this is shirt ink. It works really well on cotton. It's water-based. It kind of soaks into the fabric. It works alright on paper. It gives kind of a matte finish on paper, which you may or may not want. I don't know. This will be one of the options that I send so you can see. But we'll take some ink and spread it out. I always try and wipe up any of my hands as soon as possible because you start getting it everywhere, and you get it on blank t-shirts, and you get it on, I guess, blank cardboard pieces, and you know, just everywhere. Okay, and then grab your squeegee. So there's two ways you can do it. You can do a pull, or you can do a push. And then I'd always flood the screen first. So this being water-based, it dries out very easy. When it's puddled up like this, it's going to take forever to dry and you don't got to worry about it. but after you do one print, it'll be inside all the little holes, and there won't be any on top of it, so it won't be flooded yet. And that's when it dries out extremely easy, when it's just a tiny amount that's in the holes. I'll show you what I mean here. So you usually got to wet down the whole blade to get it so it slides nice and easily. Otherwise, if it's dry on a corner, it'll kind of pool and it'll be real tough. Get it and very lightly, just enough to really pull the squeegee. I'm going to very lightly slide this all over the thing. That's called flooding the screen. And you get a nice thin layer. So whenever you're dealing with pulling your cardboard out, it shouldn't have put anything onto it yet. Whenever you're dealing with putting your cardboard out, putting a new piece in, you should keep it flooded like this, especially if you use paint or like a solvent-based ink, because it'll dry super easy, and if it dries in those holes in the mesh, it pretty much ruins the frame. So you can do that. Make sure your cardboard's all pushed in. And then this time you're going to push down really hard and pull, and it should close that gap in between the cardboard and the frame, and it'll deposit ink on the screen when you do, and as soon as the blade moves over, the screen's going to pop up, so it won't smear it at all. That was kind of interesting. You feel the corrugation of the cardboard as you go. I guess I should have expected that. And then I lift it up. So when the screen's like this, it's very easy for the ink to dry in the holes. So if you're not going to immediately flood it, you're going to want to be real quick. Take this out, set it on a drying rack. Go grab your next one. Toss your next one in. Set it down, and then flood again. You can flood going backwards too, or pushing instead of pulling. And as long as you get all those little parts filled up with ink, you're good to go. Now that's one way to do it. That was the pull. You can also find it might be more comfortable for you to push it. And there you go. And that's a push. So when you're done, you can do 10 or 20 or however much you have room for them to dry. Grab all your extra ink, go ahead, save it. Now this is water-based ink, so I usually use a dryer to dry my shirts. I'm going to use a hair dryer here, or an industrial hair dryer. You can get it from Amazon for like 15 or 20 bucks. Free shipping if you have Prime. It'll work. It's not as cool as, the conveyor belt one. But it'll work. Just pick up all your extra bits of ink. If you don't have one of these, I just use like a playing card or something, maybe a note card. Alright. That would be super messy afterwards. So immediately, it's been maybe like a minute since I haven't had ink on the little holes, and that's like the most you're ever want to go. And that's with water-based ink. If you have paint, I wouldn't even wait this long. But immediately come over to. I'm going to wet this down real quick before I move the camera. As quick as you can, get it over to your sink or your outside and hose, however you can do it, and just start washing this stuff down. I always wash out the guys first, and then I get my squeegee. Set the squeegee aside. spatula. Set him aside. Then I go back and get the whole thing again. Looks like these little guys came with me, so wash those off too. Let them all dry. You should be able to see the water squirt through the backside when you're squirting it on the front side. Make sure they're open. And if you ever do get, there's masking tape here on the backside. If it does like push through too hard and it comes off, just put a new piece of masking tape on it. This kind of keeps it from leaking out. And these were for the exposure, to make sure I got the exposure right. So looks like a little bit more. And then that looks pretty good. You should be able to look and see no ink in the little holes, and then look around the edges too. There's no ink, because sometimes they set it up to dry and then it'll run down. That's pretty good for that. Let that guy dry. Come back to this. We'll hit it with heat. This ink says 3 minutes at 320 degrees. What you'll see happen though is like this whitish smoke will come off it, and that's just the water vapor leaving with a little bit of the black ink. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just if you run out of space and you'd rather heat set the ink. If you let it dry for like 4 days, it'll be just fine the same. If you ever try and do a t-shirt, you do have to heat set the ink, otherwise it'll wash out in the wash machine. But for a shipping box, it ought to be fine. Those never get wet. That's really all there is to it.